opportunities, achievement, and community for all. Our mission, the School District of Milton, in partnership with the community, prepares our students for achievement and lifetime readiness by providing opportunities for all. And Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I would entertain action on tonight's agenda. I have a motion from Rick, a second from Ed. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I would entertain action on the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on January 26, 2026 as presented.
I have a motion from Tracy, a second from John. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action on vouchers.
I move to approve general checking account vouchers totaling $1,050,042.92 as presented.
Motion from Tracy, a second from Rick. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Tonight, we found out at the last minute, our student council members were not available, so we will be moving their report to a future agenda. And I did check, Ross is checking again, we do have no one for comments. So we are on to 2A, Red Hawk highlights.
Yeah, we have a number of things that I want to highlight tonight. Again, some great things happening across our district. I'll start with our FBLA students. They competed at the Region 5 conference this past Saturday. 8 of the students individually qualified for the state competition. There are also some that are alternates in case others aren't able to make it. The team as a whole received a first place designation for all of our community service projects that have been taking place with that group. And more details about the upcoming state competition, which it will be held in April, will be coming out as we get closer to that event. So congratulations to our FBLA team. We have 3 Milton High School teams participated in the Financial Literacy Bowl, which was held at Black Hawk Tech on February 6th. Of those 3 teams, one team finished second overall and another team finished 4th overall. The team that finished in second place is also moving on to the state competition in April. The Milton Middle School Unity team has been raising funds for their annual Polar Plunge. It's taking place Saturday, February 14th at Henry Villas Zoo. And over the 12 years that the Milton Middle School Unity team has been taking part in the Polar Plunge, they have raised over $52,000 towards Special Olympics Wisconsin. So encourage anyone who's interested in making a donation to support a very worthy cause to reach out to Milton Middle School. Another thing that happens annually, at least over the last couple years, the Northside Cereal Box Drive is underway. Students are accepting cereal donations through February 20th, and all boxes that are collected will be donated to the Milton Food Pantry. Their goal is always every year to raise more food for the Milton Food Pantry than they did the year before, and they've been wildly successful with that lately, if you've followed that in past years. Our school districts has joined other school districts and private schools across the county for the Rock County School Safety Consortium. The Janesville Jets are partnering with the consortium for a school safety night that's coming up on February 14th. They're raising funds the Jets are raising funds to purchase emergency first aid kits for every classroom across the entire Rock County. So we're looking forward to that fundraising opportunity. Again, that's on February 14th. Milton High School Chamber Choir performed the national anthem in Madison at last week before the UW women's basketball game. So congratulations to the Chamber Choir for being selected for that honor. Milton High School is hosting our first robotics tournament of the season. That's coming up on February 21st. People interested in attending that competition starts at 10 a.m. And we had today a professional development day. There was a focus on student and staff wellness with a lot of breakout sessions for staff members to attend. I want to thank all of our presenters, both our in-district and out-of-district presenters that took part in that, and thank all the folks for coordinating that great opportunity for our staff.
Any questions?
It's just to confirm robotics was February 21st.
I believe so. Let me double check. Robotics, February 21st at the high school, starts at 10 a.m.
Thank you.
The other item that I had in the superintendent's update is the second Friday in January count. There's 2 documents there. Chelsea, if you can pull up the final copy of the 2026 second Friday DPI count calculation, and I'll walk through that document. In that document, you'll see a couple different things. This has listed for each school and each grade level our overall enrollment, both in the third Friday in September count and then the second Friday in January count. And then also our number of resident students that open enroll out, the non-resident students that open enroll in, and then it gives a total for the total in buildings. On the right side in red is our enrollment. That's the number of students that are in our schools. The total adjusted head count is listed there. And then on the bottom, the total FTE. And you'll see that the overall enrollment dropped 7 students from September to January. It went from 3,426 to 3,419. And if you look at the breakout by different schools and grade levels, you can see that that's kind of a mix of students across all the different schools and grade levels. Open enroll in decreased by 4 from from September to January, where 4K through 8 open enrolling stayed the same, but 9th grade through 12th grade, it dropped by 4 students. And open enroll out, the resident students that open enroll out to other districts went down by 16, and 10 of those 16 are from Milton High School. So the second Friday count takes place at every school in every district across the state each year in January. And those numbers are sent into DPI that uses the September count and the January count in their calculations for funding. Any questions or thoughts from board members on that topic?
You clarify the open enroll out reduced by 16, so we had 16 enroll back in. Is that the way I interpreted that comment?
They either open enrolled in, or they may have, if they moved out of the district, then they're not resident students anymore, so then they're not included in the open enroll out.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, we'll move on to 3A, update on debt defeasance planning.
So,
And we have, are you gonna?
but yeah, I'm just going to introduce. Yes. So sorry if that's okay. So back in January 19th, the finance committee met, and one of the agenda items was an update on debt defeasance. So we actually have a guest here, Kevin, to present tonight. Rich, I'll hand it over to yourself and Ross to update, but just wanted to make the folks know that this was part of the committee meeting.
Yeah, just one quick thing, and then we'll let Ross introduce Kevin and share a little bit about his background. But as Tracy shared, the Finance Committee meeting was back on the 19th. So it was prior to that, prior to the last board meeting. We gave an update at that time on all 3 of the agenda items that are listed, but Kevin was able to join us and then just Previewing the other two agenda items are things that we talked about at the last meeting, but we're bringing back as action items tonight. So Ross?
All right, and then real quick, I'll introduce Kevin Mullen here. He's with Baird. On the 19th, when we talked about the debt defeasance, we looked over the initial projection for defeasing about $4.275 million. And I invited Kevin to join us tonight to see if the board has any questions regarding that document and to walk through some of the calculations he prepared for us. So thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks so much for having me here this evening. As Ross mentioned, so this defeasance is actually the action of paying off the debt, but you as a board have been preparing for this for a few years. So for the last 3 years, when you developed your budget and you looked at your debt payments and your overall levy as a strategy to manage your levy, you've added a little bit to debt service. And so for the last 3 years, you've added $1.5 million, $1.5 million, and this year $1.275 to your budget for debt prepayment. And so Ross and I periodically have talked about like what the timing looks like. And Ross has been very strategic about, not only planning for this moment, but then the actual action of doing the defeasance, because when you actually do the defeasance, it gets added to the shared cost for the school district. And in that year, it churns through your aid formula. And so there's been the act of levying to build up to this moment, and now the actual mechanics of the defeasance. And so what the defeasance is you take those additional levies and you put them in an escrow. The bonds that you sold back in, I believe it was 2019, have a call date, and that call date is March 1st of 2027. And so these funds will be put into an escrow, and you'll direct the paying agent for the escrow to call the bonds in a year, basically. And so that debt comes off of your books. It's no longer your debt service. It's the responsibility of the escrow. And it reduces your debt requirements moving forward. And so, as Ross mentioned, you've got a balance of $4.275,000 in Fund 39. That's the amount that we'll be using for that defeasance. It will be put in the escrow, and then once everything is put together, the investments are made in that escrow, and it's paid off. The act of reducing that debt service will lower your interest cost on that debt by about $1,500,000. That gets added to the defeasance that was done in 2023, which was about just over $1.3 million. Together, the combined savings through those two defeasances is roughly $2.9 million in unspent debt service interest costs. So a savings of $2.9 million. In terms of board action, you'll have the resolution approving the defeasance, and I believe that'll be at your next board meeting. Yep. At the March 9th meeting. Assuming that's approved, then the mechanics of the defeasance get put together, and we'll actually put the escrow together before June 30th. And so that's, what we're actually preparing to do right now. So the sheet in front of you, I just kind of went over the timing sheet. Really, there's only one board action required on your part, a lot of activity on Ross's part and with his office. But then turning the page, I think it's also helpful just to look at the snapshot of your debt service before and after the defeasance. And so the large box on the left-hand side is before defeasance. And that is the actual scheduled principal and interest payments on that 2019 borrowing. And you can see that borrowing goes out to the year 2039 presently. The last defeasance, you'll notice the last maturity on that borrowing is shaded in blue. The last defeasance had paid for a portion of that principal in that year. This defeasance will pay off that last maturity and then eat into the next maturity in 2038. So we basically, shortened the debt by 1.5 years through this process. But if you look at the after defeasance debt, that's what it looks like once those payments have been removed. And what's really important is if you look at the far right-hand side, it shows what the annual reduction in debt service cost is. And so because those maturities are at the very end of the borrowing cycle, the big payments are taken off of the back end. And you can see those large reductions of $3.3 million and $1 million in the last 2 years. But then annually, each year, you'll also realize a reduction of debt service of about $128,000 until that time. So it does take pressure off of future budgets as you're preparing. And it also shortens the window in terms of when your debt service is due. Down below on the left-hand side is a summary of the costs involved in the defeasance. And I think Ross has been very thoughtful and intentional about, combining these together because there are fixed costs in terms of doing this. And so to do, 3 of those, together in one fell swoop saves some costs. And there are about $17,000 of fixed costs involved. There's a bond counsel fee. So there's an opinion that's written at the time that it's done. Our cost for pulling the transaction together, as well as a CPA verification fee. So you actually have to have an independent auditor certify that the money put in escrow is sufficient to pay off the debt. It's a really important piece of the process. But once you kind of factor all those things in, on the right-hand side is a summary of what the savings is after those costs. And down below is just a summary of where the levy amounts come in and how they're being spent. So you can see, how that money is accumulated over that 3-year period of time and how it's spent. That's really more for Ross's edification than anyone else. He likes to have, all that information in front of him. So, but it's also helpful for you maybe as well. Any questions on that or anything you'd like me to elaborate on?
Kevin, thanks for joining us and thanks for the information. Maybe I'm reading this wrong, but I just need a clarification. So on the top, you stated that our savings was going to be about 2.9 million.
Thank you. So this actual defeasance is $1,534,000. There was a defeasance that was done in 2023 that also saved $1.3 million. So the actual strategy together between that one and this one added together is 2.9 million. $1,535,000 is what the estimated savings is for this actual defeasance.
Okay, so that was my question. That's on the bottom where it says $1,535,000. That's just the one
Correct.
portion of it.
That's just this.
But the total,
transaction.
which I want to make sure people in the public understand, we're saving 2.9 million.
Yeah, so part of that was already, that occurred when we did a defeasance in 2023, which was roughly $1,350,000 plus then this $1,534,000 this time. Thanks for asking.
Thank you so much for coming this evening. We appreciate it. Can you just clarify, this money has already been levied?
Correct.
The district is not going to seek any additional funds to do this defeasance.
That's right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming tonight
Yeah,
and
thanks so
explaining
much.
everything.
And then the other 2 agenda items are items that were shared at the last board meeting on January 26th, but we're bringing them back as action items. The first one is the 5-year capital maintenance plan and the vehicle and equipment replacement schedule. Stephen has put together a memo that's listed in board docs along with those actual plans. If you recall at the last meeting, he walked through the different projects that would be in the plans if approved for next year. Stephen, anything that you want to highlight beyond what you talked about at the last meeting?
No, really nothing to highlight. Everything is still the same from what was presented at the previous meeting. I didn't have any other clarifying information or additional information that was put into the memo. So it's just the addition of the recommended motion from the memo that was shared previously.
Thank you, Stephen. I would like to add that the Finance Committee does support approving this motion.
Stephen, just to recap a couple things, just to summarize, because it's been a couple weeks and agreed, we're very supportive of this. The roughly 1.6 is money that we're not, as Teresa said, we're not asking for that. That's our money that we have budgeted to pay for.
That is 100% correct. Money that is part of the plan is budgeted for both out of Fund 10 and out of Fund 46. It's a typical action, typical budget line item every single year.
And that number is very consistent year to year, correct?
Very
It's about the same, right?
Yep.
And then just one other piece of clarity, the discussion around the new maintenance building. We will see that in the capital plan because it needs to be in the capital plan, but that is not part of the approval here tonight.
Correct. So the two items that were added to the capital plan, one was healthcare sciences at the high school, two was the new district maintenance facility, were added to the plan so it could be eligible for Fund 46 through board approval at a later date, which will be later this fiscal year, not for board action tonight at all.
That's all, just re-clarifying that, make sure I understood.
Yes, thank you.
I move to approve the 10-year capital maintenance and improvement plan and the 5-year vehicle and equipment replacement schedule, specifically the items, projects outlined for the completion in the 26-27 column as presented.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion from Tracy, a second from John. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And item C, you're still there.
So the next item from the finance committee meeting was also the north side playground equipment, and this was also supported by the finance committee. If anyone has any questions.
And this is same story as the previous memo. Really, the only addition to this memo was the recommended motion based on the finance committee meeting. Finance committee and the last board meeting presentation. No real new information to share other than that.
And one more clarity, Stephen. Again, this is not money that we are asking the public for. This is a result of frugal spending over the last year. We have the money to do this out of pocket.
Correct. Yes, this will be money that should become forecasted to become available this current fiscal year, not any additional levy or additional burden on taxpayers. This is taking advantage of unspent funds at the end of a fiscal year.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the north side playground equipment replacement project with Gerber Leisure Products in the amount of $250,000 to be completed in the fiscal year 25-26 as presented.
I'll second.
So I have a motion from Rick, a second from Tracy. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, next we have a report on the superintendent hiring process. The hiring committee had a meeting right after the board meeting 2 weeks ago, and tonight, again, we will have a committee meeting right after the board meeting. Last committee meeting, we talked about HYA gathering data for a profile of the superintendent. The survey link was emailed out. It closes on February 13th. It's been out on social media. Please, if you've not taken that survey yet, please participate. We also had our face-to-face focus groups on February 4th. We had students, staff, admin, community members. Many people had input on what we were looking for, that profile of a superintendent. There's still one more opportunity to provide input. There is a community session on February 15th. And again, that link will be sent out closer to that date. And then again, we're meeting tonight. And tonight we will be talking through the day in the district and some of the other planning items for the process. Any questions? All right, thank you very much. So we will move on to governance committee. Ed?
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Last Monday, Monday, February 3rd, the governance committee met. In attendance that were all the committee members, Rick and Tracy and myself, as well as Dr. Smith. We are also joined by a host of administration. And there were 2 agenda items in that meeting that I will summarize here tonight. Neither one of them are action items tonight. They're both informative tonight, so we can vote on them in the near future, next week and possibly further out for the second one. The first topic was first reading of Neola policies. There were a total of 18 policies that were in need of updating, and those are listed in a document that is available to you in board docs. If you need access, please reach out to myself or Chelsea. We can certainly make sure you get it. There is also two policies that are being recommended to be rescinded as they are either now covered by a different policy or they're just simply no longer necessary. And then there are also 3 new policies available for review. I would invite the board to review all these policies over the next 2 weeks. If you need any clarity or questions, certainly reach out to Rich or myself. We'd be happy to fill you in on what we know about them and the purpose of those changes or additions or rescindings. And before we get into questions, I just want to take a minute and thank the administration and also Bree Miles, who assisted with the AI policy. Though there's a lot of work that goes into that prior to the meeting, and it went pretty efficiently. And it's tedious, hard work, but it is the backbone of what we do. So it's very important work. So I really appreciate that, everyone's effort. And I will pause there and see if there are any questions on any of the policies at this time.
And I had a couple if I could ask
Yeah.
now.
Well,
5895,
Okay.
that's student employment. Does that mean we don't do those permits anymore?
So I'm going to go back to my memory, but I believe, yes, we do not have the change in policies that we don't have to do anymore. It's mandated that
Through the
it be
state.
done somewhere else.
Yeah, it is new legislation that's required that the state approves those rather than each individual school.
Okay.
So the policy matches that new requirement from the state.
That'd be an example of a policy that's just kind of no longer necessary.
Sure. Thank you.
Anything else, Joe?
6152.01, that was the waiver of school fees or fines. Does that cover like all sporting groups, band, show choir? Is all that covered, part of that, if there's a need?
We had that question actually come up because I asked a question about uniforms, in which there are no uniforms anymore. Rich, I think the answer is yes. It covers anything that is curricular. And does it cover extracurricular, Jeremy?
It's extracurricular that are school fees. The extracurricular that are school fees.
So like a band fee or a show choir fee?
So with those, we do have fees that are going to the membership of the parent group. So parents groups have their own membership fee to be part of. Well, they put out those fees that those get contributed to us, 121s. They're not waivable just because it's not a school fee, but that does not mean they cannot be part of a program either.
So I guess the program might find a way to let all those kids participate.
Yeah, anybody that is enrolled because it's one of our classes, let's take show choir and band, they still get to participate in those programs.
Okay.
Our supporting groups have participation fees to be in their groups, but that doesn't mean that if they don't pay that, they don't get to participate in there.
Okay, thank you.
Try anything else?
That's what I got. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. I will move on to the next item. The second topic was we've been talking about the strategic plan. As you all may recall, that there are some goals in our current strategic plan that we've achieved, which is great stuff. And we're really happy about that. But now we need to look in coming up with new goals. So in board docs, you will see that the administration has put together a draft of some potential new goals that we might use. And these are strictly, I want to really highlight the word draft. These are thought processes meant to kind of get the conversation started. In most cases, there's more than we would actually use. There's more goals than we would actually use in a strategic plan. So the discussion that night was to bring it to the board tonight so that you all would have a chance to digest it and read it and give us a little time to come back at a future date. And then also offer administration a chance to maybe potentially kind of rank the ones or highlight the ones that they feel are that they really want to lean into the most. They're most important. Rich, and then we would come back a later day and try to collaborate on that and see if we can come together on those and pass that once we settle on those goals, we would also, administration would work towards metrics for those goals. Am I catching that about right?
I think you described that really well, Ed, as far as what we have right here and what's coming up. So as an example, if you look at that first pillar in teaching and learning, for each of the 5 pillars, it has which administrator took the lead on gathering information on different potential topic areas. So for teaching and learning, it's our director of teaching and learning, Julie Musgrove. And she worked together with other directors, with principals, to get input on what are some different possible areas that we could prioritize as goals. So the idea isn't that there would be a goal or a focus area for each of the things that are listed under that category. It's more of a starting point for conversation, and then what we'd like at the next board meeting, and Ed had shared that we can bring back from our administrators some priority areas out of the ones that are listed, but also if the board has any priority areas of the items that are listed or anything that's not listed on this document in each of those 5 pillars, then once that's been determined, if we follow the model that we've had in the past that has worked really well, we would identify one goal for each of our 5 pillars, and then 2 to 3 to 4 focus areas under each of those pillars.
And given that, if the board has an appetite, because as everybody knows, I'm a spreadsheet nerd. I've already made a spreadsheet with all those in it and rankings, so I can share it with Rich, so the board can have access to it, and they can certainly rank 1, 2, and 3. I only went down to 3, but you could have 2 1s if you wanted to, or 2 2s and 2 3s. I think that'd be very beneficial for the administration to have that information, kind of see which way the board is leaning.
I think we have to be careful with the board providing information where every member of the board or multiple members of the board are chiming
Fair.
in on that outside of a regular meeting. So it might be a good way for you individually to organize your thoughts and bring them back
Okay.
to the next board meeting, but I'd be cautious with filling those rankings in and then having our administrators move based on those recommendations.
Then I will use it
priority areas.
I will use it for myself and then pass it along and then not share it.
Is it okay if we copy it and have our own version?
Sure. I mean, I think, well, I'm going to lean towards Rich, but I think that would be okay.
We make our own copy. We just don't put it all on one. I'd like you to share it so I could do that.
And I think the process would be for me to share with Rich and Rich share with the board, or can I share? Okay. I can do that. So I'm going to pause there and ask for any questions on the second topic on strategic plan.
I would just like the admin team to thank them for putting the definitions in for some of the categories that I was not as intellectually able to understand. So that does help to be able to understand where they're going with what their where their focus is. So thank you guys very much.
I think that's a good point too, as you're reading through this and mulling it over the next couple of weeks. If there are things that you have questions on, definitely feel free to reach out and we can get answers to you if there is anything here that you don't understand or you want to dive in a little bit more deeply.
Yeah, I just want to recap one thing that Rich said. As Dr. Smith said, I'm happy to share the spreadsheet out with everybody if they want to use it, but I don't have a placeholder for thoughts that you might come up with of your own. So be sure and articulate. If you have it, it's perfectly fine to say, hey, I would like something in this spirit, and articulate that. So either send that an email to Rich or find a way to put it on the spreadsheet. I'll put a placeholder, I guess, for it. And with that, that's what I have, Dr. Smith.
I just want to reiterate the timeline so that we're all on the same page. We will be talking about this at our next board meeting and giving guidance so that we can start getting measurable goals in place. So.
And just to back up one more item, so we'll be looking for approval on the policies also next
Yes.
board meeting, and then what you just mentioned.
Yep. All right, we are on to the Human Services Committee report. John?
Thank you, Annette.
All right, thank you. So this presentation that you have in board docs is an attempt to try to keep everything organized as much as possible. So this was shared with the Human Resources Committee, as John shared. Then it was also shared with the Benefits Advisory Group and then brought forward to the Board of Education here. So I'm going to jump around just a second and touch base on that post-employment benefit memo. It's a follow-up to the memo I shared on January 9th. And this memo has corrections to the scenarios that were listed in that January 9th memo. And in looking at or reviewing our numbers and talking with a few retirees and staff at the district office, I had incorrectly calculated the total maximum that the 2023 teacher retirees would max out at. So looking at this updated memo, you'll see towards the bottom of that first page, it outlines the 2023 teachers, and they're going to be coming in at just shy of $6,000 less than the maximum cap of $76,000, which is a correction to that previous memo. And then you'll see the 2024 teachers are going to be just over by $973.28 more than the cap. So I originally, looking at that last memo, had projected that the 23, 24, and 25 teachers were going to be over that $76,000 tier 1A cap. So the 23 teachers, just summarizing, are going to be fine coming in under that cap. 24 teachers are just over that $76,000 cap. And the 2025 teachers will be $8,597 over that cap. And those are based off of the actual rates that we know as of today. I'm not going to go into the projections for next year because we'll be getting those later this month from USI, our insurance broker, on the 25th of February. Any questions about the correction memo?
There's just one thing that I'll add to that is that it only pertains to folks that are in that tier 1A of our post-employment benefits plan. And that folks to qualify for that have until July 1st of 2027 as their retirement date. So there could potentially be a retirement class of 2026 that would be eligible to stay on those benefits and could potentially reach that maximum cap, and then a retirement class of 2027. But then that would be the last group that is able to, at retirement, stay on the district's insurance plan for up to those 4 years or until that cap is met. People that retire after that time are still eligible for retirement benefits, but it isn't being on the district's retirement plan.
Just want to recap kind of how that went.
Okay, sure. Actually, this agenda item is based off of the January 14th, 2026 Benefits Advisory Group, where we met and we talked through that component. So this presentation was shared at this last Thursday's Benefits Advisory Group meeting too. So we'll see the first item on the recap slide. We talked through medical insurance enrollment trends. We talked through the medical loss ratio and how it's performing for the two different plans. Keep scrolling. Up or down? Down. Yep. Keep going. You're doing good right there. So you'll see that we talked through the medical insurance how the medical loss ratio is performing, and the HRA and the HSA are both separated. We talked about our wellness participation. And then we also talked about critical dates. I mentioned the February 25th with the Dean health insurance renewal rates. What we're looking for is board action on March 9th. So this is just a discussion today to kind of give you the background on what was taking place at the Benefits Advisory Group meetings. We talked through what Dean's insurance renewals stipulations were that they had shared with us this last August and how that applies to our current situation. And then moving on to the next slide, we talked through the medical insurance considerations for 26-27. And at HR committee, okay, Chelsea, can you go back up a few?
It's slide 6.
Yep. And right there. So at this, the medical insurance considerations. So we had, if you recall back to our meeting in December, we identified all these different options that we had. And so the task from the Human Resources Committee was to, what are we going to be focusing on for the 26-27 year? And so those are the first two that we were focusing on, was the district contributions capped at 85% of the lowest cost option, as well as separate HRA and HSA risk pools for the first time. Dean has said that that second bullet point is not an option for us because they're mandating that. And that's going to happen right now for when we get the 26-27 rates. So our focus has been on the district contribution rates capped at 85% of the lowest cost option. The next bolded area talks about other considerations. So now these are options that we talked very high level at the HR committee, and we are not going into further detail for this upcoming renewal year. Other findings that we talked about with the HR committee and the benefits advisory group was double dental coverage for married employees, as well as the family cash option. And that was 18 families with health insurance and cash option. And we have 15 families that both of the married couples have family dental. And so we've had this conversation a few times over the years with the Human Resources Committee and with the Board of Education. And so just sharing that information with the Benefits Advisory Group that we are bringing this forward back to the Human Resources Committee. And we'll be talking about that here in the next agenda item. The next steps we talked through with the BAG, or the Benefits Advisory Group meeting, as well as the Human Resources Committee. What does that timeline look like? So that was our overall summary for the Benefits Advisory Group. Any questions on that agenda item?
I want to highlight one thing there too, and Chelsea, I'll have you go back to slide 3, because we had a really good conversation with the Benefits Advisory Group. It's always nice to be able to meet with representatives from our staff, talk about kind of where we are and what we're seeing with our benefits. And oftentimes we lead with this slide because it reinforces what a large part of our budget is taken up by benefits. You can see there that almost a quarter of our overall budget, about 21% for this current fiscal year, are benefits for our employees. The largest portion of that is medical insurance. Our medical insurance costs for the district's portion of what we pay for this current year is about $5.5 million for the year. And as we're doing some projections for next year, we anticipate at least a 9.9% increase in those premiums for next year between the HRA and the HSA. And if that were to materialize at that point, that's over $500,000 in increased costs for the district. And a large part of our conversation on this topic is around the sustainability, both for the school district and our budget, but also the impact that rapidly increasing medical costs has on our budget, our staff's home budgets too. And it's those increased costs and how quickly they're increasing really has a huge impact on the district and on our employees. So because of that, we are looking for ways to find sustainable solutions to that issue. If there wasn't anything else, Chris, do you want to?
For Chris. Over the years, I know we've looked at, and I'm speaking specifically about the double dental and the cash option. We've looked at it periodically. We never really had an action, we were just sort of taking a peek at what those numbers look like. These numbers strike me as historically lots lower than in previous years. Is that accurate at all?
So
as far as number of families electing either of those two options?
So right now, no. It ebbs and flows a little bit depending on the demographics of the staff at any given year. So when we have people resigning or retiring, or the new staff that are coming in, that amount has ebbed and flowed. Not a lot. Like we're not like seeing a trough right now, and then we're going to see a hill in a year or so. So that's pretty consistent with what we have seen from the HR lens.
Okay.
One thing on that though, and Chelsea has slide 7 up on the display. The double dental, there are 15 different families where both of the spouses work for the school district and they both take the dental insurance. And as Chris shared, that's somewhat typical to the numbers that we've had in the past. You can see what that annual cost is to the district to family insurance and what that overall cost is then for the 15 employees. And 18 that take family health insurance and the cash option, or I shouldn't say family, that take some health insurance and the cash option. And you can see that overall cost there. Those are with the cash option list there, that's only employees that are taking both the medical insurance and cash options. That's not the total number that take the cash option overall. And that number is listed on, I think that's listed here. Is that coming up, Chris? Yeah, on slide 5, there are 96 employees altogether that take the cash option. And then of the rest of the staff that are on one of the 2 insurance options, it's split almost equally between the HRA and the HSA.
You'll see, Joe, right at the top, the 3rd bullet point, we're down from 103 in the previous year.
Yeah, those are the numbers that I was recollecting, so thank you for that.
So the other piece of Joe had shared that we've been talking about this for the few years and looking at it. This is something that we're not bringing as any recommendation right now, but we can look at that timeline. We're going to continue to have another HR committee meeting that's scheduled for February 18th. And then at the next board meeting on February 23rd, discussion and then potential action on March 9th on any potential changes. One of the things that the committee asked Chris to do is to gather information from the other Badger Conference schools about that issue with double dental and with insurance plus the cash option. So once we have that data, we will be bringing that back to the HR committee and the board.
Recap of the benefits advisory group from January 14th or the double dental agenda items.
Chris, can you just clarify that cash option? It's, what is it, like 2,200?
$2,375 for the full year, depending on when the individual starts.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thanks. Is that what I got?
Oh, one more agenda item.
All right.
All right. So the 4th agenda item is the 26-27 health insurance scenarios. And Chelsea, if you can bring up that presentation one more time, and then we're going to go down to the green options. And we're right there. Okay. So here we have what we know today is we have our 25, 26 HRA rates, and we have our HSA rates for 25, 26. And as Rich shared, we're looking at the 9.9% for the HSA if we continue to meet our wellness objective. And if we meet our wellness objective and keep our medical loss ratio below 103, they're going to cap the HRA also at 9.9. Right now, as Dean had shared from looking at November's data, we're trending a little high on the medical loss ratio for the HRA. And so I believe that was around 113 farther up on the memo. So right up here. So you'll see that what we are projecting on this next slide is that the HSA will come in at a 9.9. And we are anticipating an approximate 15% underneath the HRA totals. And so you'll see, what does that 15% look like for 26-27? And that would be a difference between the two different rates for the two different years, a $3,732 increase. And then looking at the HSA difference with the 9.9% increase, that would be $1,893. I want to stress that these are strictly projections that Rich, Ross, and I have worked on. We haven't received these projections from USI. So these are just internal to kind of give you an idea of what it could look like as we wait a few more weeks until we get those actual rates. It's also important to note, looking back at our last 3 years, we have gotten 9.9% on both HRA and HSA because they were combined. So each year, that 9.9% translates into $500,000 each year of new money that we have to pay the health insurance company for these employee benefits. So 3 years times 500,000, 1.5 million. So just want to keep that on everybody's mind. And there's a few key takeaways that Rich had hit on when he was talking through the benefits and how much they make up of our total budget as well, and how that would impact staff as well as the district. Any questions on those two slides?
I want to reinforce that Dean has shared that they'll be moving forward with separate calculations for the HRA and the HSA plan, whereas as Chris just shared that in past years, whatever that rate increase has been, it's been the same rate increase for both plans. And that's looking at the qualifier numbers, especially the medical loss ratio. It as of now is likely that the HRA is not going to qualify for the 9.9% rate cap, and we would be anticipating maybe about a 15% increase to the premiums in that plan, and then the 9.9 specifically on the HSA plan.
Chris, do you anticipate having those final numbers from Dean before next week's HR meeting?
I do not.
Okay.
February 25th is when USI said it's the absolute soonest they will get those rates to us.
So we are anticipating that we'll have those for the March 9th board meeting, but not for the board meeting or the HR committee meeting before then. And that's why we're running these scenario numbers, so that we can be thinking about kind of what if it comes in those levels where we think it is. But then if it doesn't come in at that level, we'll bring adjusted amounts to that meeting once we have them.
Okay, so Chelsea, if you can leave this one up, and then if you can go into board docs and bring up the modeling numbers. Yep, that one right there. Ross is going to talk through this document and what does that translate into for that 9.9 and that 15% that I just referenced.
All right, so what we're looking at here is a more exploded view of the actual premium dollars tied up in the HSA and HRA plans currently. On this spreadsheet, the information is separated by 2 gray lines across the middle of the page. On the top of the page represents our current premium for the 25-26 school year for both plans. And I've color coded the pertinent numbers to pay attention to when we're talking about district cost and employee cost. The HSA plan has a premium contribution. We'll use family in this example. Every employee contributes about $2,874 annually to their family HSA plan. On top of that, the district also provides the HSA contributions to their account for a family plan of $5,500 taken out across their payroll structure throughout the year. On the right side of the page is the HRA version of the plan, where the employee would contribute about $3,732 annually to the premium. So right now on paper, the premium difference for employees is already highlighted on this page. But what I want to draw your attention to at the top of the page is the total premium. And this is where we really need to understand our plan design differences in the school district, because for the entire year, the HSA premium for family is just over $19,100, And for the HRA, it's $24,800. The difference between those two is that HSA contribution that the district makes into that family account. And this was by design. When we split the plans into two different HSA and HRA plans with Dean many years ago, the concept was that the district total contribution to both plans would be roughly equal. So now that we've been in discussions with Dean about what the deviation in medical loss ratios means for us next year, we know that those rates are going to start to renew on diverging paths going forward. So no longer at 9.9, we know that, or we anticipate that 9.9 will be our HSA renewal, but we're projecting and anticipating as much as a 15% renewal for the HRA. In the middle of the page where those two gray lines exist, we have those percentages dialed in for modeling purposes. This is a spreadsheet that we're using to adjust as we learn new information from USI. Below the page, though, I wanted to highlight what we mean when we stated on an earlier slide what renewing it at the lowest cost option means for purposes of employee and district costs, okay? This is one example. This does not represent what we will do or what we will recommend, but it does reflect what the current model is showing. On the lower half of the page, at a 9.9 renewal for the HSA plan, the employee contribution for family would increase to about $3,159 annually. And on the right side of the page, we have a couple different numbers to look at. On the HRA side of things, if we cap the district contribution to what would have been the what would have been the increase at the lowest cost option, we cannot simply look at the premiums under the HSA and say that's the limit we're going to pay. Because you can already see that difference is on display with what we contribute to the HSA accounts and the premium costs themselves. So instead, on this spreadsheet, we modeled what the HRA would have been if they had stayed in alignment, if both plans had renewed at 9.9. And in the event that we get a renewal for the HRA above that 9.9, that differential would be passed on to the employee as the way we would renew at the lowest cost option going forward. So on the far right of the page, where we talk about the HRA levels, what would that effective premium contribution be for employer and employee? And you can see that it would increase from 15% to about 18.77%. Other than that, the other changes for the plan are on display here. If we renew at 15% and don't change the structure of how we currently contribute, right now it's 85-15 for all plans. The district contribution is under that first column for HRA as well. Any questions? I thought this would be helpful because it demonstrates how the costs of healthcare have increased dramatically, not just the past year, but the past several years.
So I have a question on the 113%, the loss ratio. Is there a shot that we can get that down, or is that what is the period? Is it calendar? So January through December, and we have through November. Is that what you were saying?
So with what Dean provided to us, that was in looking at a snapshot at the end of November. And that is starting from July 1st till November.
Okay.
Because we look at July 1 to June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
So Dean is looking at right now our rates, and they're going to say, based off of how you've progressed from July 1 of 25 till February of 26, here's where we think your path is going to be. This is why we're going to give you the rates that we're going to give you. But we still have from February all the way through June yet to make sure we get to, or till May at least, to get our wellness numbers at that 70% threshold.
Mm-hmm.
So Dean's kind of giving us a precursor, or to say, here's what we're going to do based off of your medical trends.
If the loss ratio does it have the chance to reduce as well through the end of June?
Possibly. When we were talking with USI, they didn't think it was going to be possible, which is why we're looking towards that 15% as a most likely outcome coming up later this month. Yes, it is definitely possible.
Well, and what I'm saying is that the trend may not be there from our perspective, but we have that opportunity within, that's how the rates are calculated.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for either of you. How many years have we offered the HSA? Do we know? Is it 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that?
I believe that we started the HSA your first year, Rich.
Sounds right.
I think it was 2020. I think that it's been 6 years now.
Okay, my point is, I remember the presentation from Al Yeager that was very typical, I think, of districts, and I'm doing this from memory, that would offer both plans and then ultimately migrate away from the HRA portion. Is that part of our strategy? I mean, it looks obviously with the numbers like that's the portion that we cannot control the cost and gives us exposure to the increases. Do we have any discussions about ultimately moving away from the HRA and focusing on the HSA offering?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Joe, and you're absolutely remembering that correctly. We really don't want to move away too quickly from it because the majority of our retirees are on that HRA plan. And as Rich shared, the Tier 1A folks, once they retire, they have 4 additional years after that. So once that period of time ends, absolutely. But with Rich, Ross, and I, we're concerned about moving too quickly away from that.
We have ever since it's offered every year. There are more and more employees that take the HSA option as opposed to the HRA option. And I think we had shared earlier that for this current year, they're almost exactly the same number of each, where that was skewed. And then every year that the number of employees on the HSA option is rising and on the HRA option is going down. And I think that as those costs continue to rise faster for the HRA, it makes it more likely that more and more employees will move to the HSA option. And oftentimes, and we can't know for sure what that will do to the medical loss ratio, but if you end up with a older pool in the HRA compared to the HRA, there's a stronger likelihood that that medical loss ratio will be higher there, which will just continue to increase that difference in overall costs.
I guess my question then, from a strategy standpoint, is can we incentivize the migration from HRA to HSA and have a predictable cost exposure for the district juxtaposed against 15% type increases? And we can't predict that in 2027, 8, 9, 30. Is there a way that we could incentivize folks to migrate faster than what is happening currently, and then we would know our exact cost of potential premiums?
I want to be careful about straight off. I want to be careful about using the term incentivize because I don't want to speak for everyone's individual needs on why they chose the health plan that they're in. However, that's one of the reasons why I put this model forward, to not just potentially control costs, but demonstrate what it would look like were we to keep our contributions as a district in line regardless of what plan they're on. Yes, that would ultimately make the HRA plan provide more cost difficulty to maintain as an employee, but we don't want to remove the option if we could at least offer it under this structure.
While we're looking at that model, and it's related to what Joe just asked and what Ross just shared, if you look under the HSA column, you can see, and I'll use family insurance as the example, the district this year right now is paying $16,290.93 annually for employees that are on the family plan. Does everybody see where that is there? And then if you go down with a 9.9% increase, if you go to the bottom of that column, that would go up for next year. The district's contribution would go up to $17,903.73. So for the HSA plan, if it plays out that way, the district's contribution would go up by about $1,600 per employee that's on the family HSA. So that's where that additional cost is coming from. If you do that same comparison in the HRA columns, you're going to see that the district's portion would go up by considerably more than that $1,600 or so, especially if the HRA went up by 15%. You can see that currently it's $21,149 At 15% increase, it would go up to 24,321.57. So it would be about a $3,200 increase in the district's portion. So almost a double increase. It was about 1,600 for family. On the HSA, it would be about 3,200 per family, an increased district contribution if it goes up by 15%. And that kind of gets at what Joe was asking, that the employees' portion is going up, but the district's portion is also going up considerably with these large increases.
Sorry, but isn't the calculation to show that the district will only pay the difference on the 9.9 on the HSA, that cost? So if the cost of the HSA plan, and I'm going to use single because it's smaller number. So the cost is 15%, sorry, 85% of the single. I don't see the difference here. So it says 76.18. That's your annual cost versus 69.32, right? So 69.32 minus, it's like $1,000 for single. That would be the increase
For single, correct.
for single. So is that exact increase? So say it's $1,000. So the district is going to pay an additional $1,000 per employee. Does that not just go over to the HRA? The district will only pay an additional $1,000 of that premium. The rest the employee has to be. Am I missing that?
That's something that the board could consider, yes. And that's looking at capping. I guess the best way to describe that would be capping whatever that dollar increase is on the smallest increase plan, which will be the HSA. Whatever that dollar increase is on the HSA, matching that same dollar increase on the HRA. The way that it's laid out here isn't matching the same dollar increase in that third column. It's matching that same 9.9% increase. And even keeping those percents both at 9.9 is going to be a larger increase from the district for the folks on the HRA because the starting number is larger for folks on the HRA. That for family, that would come out to be about $2,100 compared to the $1,600 that we talked about before. But that's definitely something that the board could consider. And when we get closer to that point, we can bring some different options on what that would look like.
Okay, thank you. I was just trying to ask if that's what you were doing here, and that's where because in my head, that's where you said lowest cost option, whatever that increase was. So
Right.
going forward, it'd be interesting to see what that would calculate to.
Yep.
But I apologize. I thought that's what this was doing, but thank you for that clarification. That was something different.
Yep. This is based.
It's a really good question because there are a lot of different directions that the district could go.
So you're correct. This is based on percentage, but if we were to do it on a dollar basis off that plan, the splits in the lower right would probably get more increase. So it would be higher than the 18.7 you're seeing here.
One more clarification. When you're visiting, I presume with Al, who is obviously negotiating with Dean for us, if we do not improve our loss ratio, right? I mean, if that stays where it's at, and maybe it even trends higher, who knows? Is the 15% your and our guesstimate, or is there a chance? I mean, we hear about districts living through 20% increases. Is there a potential, right, that we could face that if we can't control that loss ratio?
Absolutely, Joe. It's right now the 15% is what Rich, Ross, and I had talked through as a possibility. We could come in at closer to 20 like you were sharing, or we could come in at 13. Higher than 9.9, but right now we're trying to look at somewhere in the middle to help to share these scenarios with you. And like what Tracy was sharing is one option, maybe looking at a dollar amount, one option be looking at percentage, but keeping in mind how this impacts staff as well as the district as a whole.
After we get the numbers back from USI and you share them with the committee, and then we share them with the board, when do we have to make the ultimate decision when we have the options, lay them out, and we have to vote on a path we're going to take? What is the end date for that?
Great question. Chelsea, if you can bring up the presentation again and go to the second to the last slide, one more down. right there with the timeline. So this is what we are looking to do with the bolded February 3rd, 5th, and 9th. That's what just transpired here this week and last week. So we're looking to have the 18th, a kind of talking through what they look like, knowing that we're not going to have the rates quite yet. We may need to have a human resources committee meeting after the board meeting on the 23rd. So somewhere 25th and after, because we only have one board meeting in March, and with spring break. So we would need to look to see if we can get another human resources committee together to share those rates with you all. And then we're looking for a board decision on the 9th, because this is very important that we get a decision for open enrollment that's going to be coming at the beginning of May. And we have to communicate it out to staff. Staff are going to want to meet and talk through their scenario, their situation. And we have to make sure that we're armed with what the board's decision is to be able to communicate it to them. That's everything I had. Any other questions about any of those 4 agenda items?
Nope, I think that's it. Appreciate all the info, guys.
All right, thank you.
Lots to share tonight.
That was a great conversation. We're going to move on to new business. 7A, educational options. Julie.
Good evening. Every year, it's an annual notification, provides families with information on the full range of educational options available to Milton residents. The families are able to see the full-time and part-time open enrollment opportunities, college and career readiness options, and home-based private education. We also are required to notify parents and guardians around our district and school accountability report cards, as well as the educational options. So that is what has been presented, but it is an annual notification. It's required. And so it's to meet our state requirement to inform our families about accountability results in our educational options that we offer.
Any questions? Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it. Discussion and possible action on high school extended field trips. Mr. Billhorn.
It's my first time at the mic. So the baseball trip we've done that the last, I believe, 3 or 4 years. The music trip, which they do every 4 years, they put those in the same cycle. So the band and choir will go together. They've done Disney recently. They came to me with another option, which be honest, we've had several conversations about the cruise that's listed there. Because at first I had a lot of questions about a cruise. But what it is there will be several different high schools on this cruise. It's a cruise that's designed, well, it's a cruise, but they have a program bringing high school music programs on board. And so the show choir and band will both be they'll be performing on the cruise, a couple different performances. There'll be other high schools that are performing as well. So they'll have an adjudicator on the cruise. So it's kind of like a mini competition while they're doing that. And it's again a program for high schools, music programs on this. So the cost is it's a few $100s more than what a Disney trip would have been, given the cost of busing now. So in both cases, students have booster groups that are helping to raise money, but students also have opportunity for fundraising as well.
Do they need any chaperones?
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yes.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I did notice on the second one, it's 100 students. How many chaperones are
Well,
necessary to protect that many?
And again, that'll be approximate. So it's still, once it's approved, and there'll be a set date coming up here this spring about, who actually is going to go. So that's an approximate number, but we will have, I believe it's for every 12 students, we have to have a chaperone.
And you feel comfortable that
I do.
okay.
In fact, they felt like on the cruise, they'll actually be more confined on the portions of the boat that they'll be allowed to be on.
Okay, then I'll move to approve the 25-26 Milton High School extended field trip request as presented.
I'll second that.
So motion from Tracy, a second from John. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And Mr. Billhorn, summer 25-26 ECCP.
All right, so, bring these 3 times a year for the fall, for the spring, and then for the summer. We have 2 students, this to share with you. 2 students will be taking classes, one at UW-Madison, one at UW-Whitewater, this summer.
Question, on the one, what course path does that fall into?
So under ECCP, students can choose to take any courses that are not courses that we have at Milton High School, or they've exhausted ours. So for the accounting course, they've exhausted our accounting classes. Folklore, there's not a pathway that's similar, so therefore we have to approve it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. On to miscellaneous action on staffing reports.
I'll move to approve the staffing report as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from John, a second from Rick. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to action on gifts and donations.
I'll move.
I have a motion from Tracy and a second from Ed. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are on to meeting dates.
Excuse me. The next regularly scheduled board meeting is 2 weeks from tonight on Monday, February 23rd at our usual 6:30 start time. We have a couple committee meetings between now and then. Next Monday, we have the Instruction, Co-Curricular, and Student Services Committee meeting, Monday, February 16th at 3 p.m. here in the PDC. And then on Wednesday of next week, the HR committee will be meeting on Wednesday, February 18th at 1 p.m. in the first floor conference room. We also have a staff advisory meeting scheduled for Wednesday, February 25th at 4 p.m. in the PDC.
What time did you say staff advisory was? I'm sorry.
Staff advisory is at 4 p.m.
Thank you.
February 25th here in the PDC.
All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion from Rick, a second from Tracy. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all so much. Thank you.